Brand is like a promise. When you buy that particular brand of juice or that particular brand of chocolate, you know what to expect. In fact, that's why you bought it. No matter where you buy it, it's gonna taste the same. That's the promise. And a visual identity is a key part of how consumers identify a brand. But what happens if the promise you made changes and evolves, and what your customers expect from you also starts evolving? The visual aesthetics, the visual system underneath that brand's visual identity starts to break down when faced with challenges. Hi, I'm Siddharth and I manage product and design at Halyard. Halyard sells experiences across the world. So if you're going to Paris, you're gonna find tickets to Eiffel Tower on Halyard. And that's same case for Dubai Frame or Burj Khalifa if you're going to Dubai. So that's what we do. We recently updated our brand. It's launched, it's out there, you should check it out. But why did we do that? What was the process behind? That's what we're going to talk about today. Remember when we were talking about brand earlier? There were two problems that the design team started to notice when we were working on different problem statements. First, that the promises that we thought we are as a brand and what our customers expected from us was changing, it was evolving. Second, the visual assets and the system powering the brand were failing at scale. To give you some examples, the color we used to depict errors was the same color as our brand. And to get that brand color printed in form of t-shirts or banners was a nightmare. Over time, there were at least 3 different palettes that came into existence at different times for different projects. But over time, they started leaking into each other, giving us a random pool of colors that we had to decide and mess with. In fact, designers spent a lot more time just trying to fix these issues around type and colors than actually fixing the problems. Something had to change.
So rebrand is an heavy-duty term, right? I don't know if I can even sort of call it that, but here's the journey, the way that we looked at it. Brand in itself is a persona. It's grown, it's changed, it's evolved like all of us have. And it started to sort of feel that there is a disconnect between what the brand is today and what it communicates in terms of the way that its identity is. That brand that we have, it's changed, it's evolved. If we have changed as a business, if we have evolved as a business, then the identity that we have needs to keep up pace with that. And that's kind of where the conversation for wanting to make a change started. Of course, then it was a question of what degree, what does change imply, what are we really trying to change to, who we are, etc., etc. So it led to a lot of soul searching in more ways than one. But the basic premise was just that growing up that happens with brands, where you feel like you need to be able to constantly keep up to date with who you are today, which is not who you were yesterday. And that's what this exercise is all about.
Our process started by asking basic questions. Who are we? What do we stand for? What do our customers expect from us? How can we represent that in terms of business value? How can we translate that into design value? How can we then turn that into a brand? We started looking for answers to these questions. We found them from our customers, from our business partners, and from within the company. We conducted various surveys and conversations and interviews. From these answers, we were able to derive some keywords. Keywords like fun, excitement, youthfulness, power, energy. Some keywords that both us and our customers agreed depicted the Halyard brand. From here, we picked some keywords and started building reference boards around them. Could we find some visual artifacts, some cultural patterns, some concepts, some other things that depict these keywords? The first place where it led us was our new colors.
I think the one that was the most interesting was the colors, or the actual identity in which people would see head out and what are the kind of associations that they will make, right? And that was a very interesting set of decisions that brought us to the point where we are today. The way that we looked at it is that we wanted the color to represent the communities that we represent, right? The communities that we represent are us as a team, the supply partners that we work with, and the people that choose to, spend their time, money, effort on wanting to sort of go on an experience with us. When you look at these 3 cohorts of people, what was abundantly clear to us was that these are not your usual people, right? They are different. And so we wanted a color that represented that. Then there was the odd realization that it's not just about the people, but it's also about the way in which we do things. The company that we run today is a managed, curated marketplace. We are not a traditional aggregator, which is what the space is inundated with. We're not following the same business model. We're not following the same approach that the existing incumbents do, right? And so it was also important to have a brand that communicates that difference, that is able to say that, hey, listen, we stick out, we stand out, right? We are different here in a sea of the existing incumbents. And so, of course, when you look at the existing incumbents, and this is kind of true worldwide, there is this general disposition towards pink, green, and so on and so forth, right? Maybe sort of red and shades in that range. And so it was clear to us that the people that we represent and the way that we do things are not common. So we need to have a color or an identity that matches that. And Purps is what sort of we call the shade of specific purple that we use as our brand identity. Was a very natural, like when we saw it, we knew that it was it, right? We knew that that's a color that's bold. That's a color that's not afraid to say that, hey, listen, I'm here, look at me. That's a color that's different. That's a color that exudes warmth, that exudes liveliness, that exudes a certain desire and ambition for life that we didn't find in a slightly more conservative, more well understood, more well accepted color. So I think Purps just sort of stood out, and when we saw it, it was just there. We knew it. And then there was an interesting conversation around Candy, which is a shade of a very neon pink, if I may call it that. And the origins for that was also very interesting. We kind of knew that neon to us signals the exuberance of the brand that we have. It signals the impact of the actual experience in the trajectory that we have, which is called life. If you sort of look at these specific moments, there'll be some that stand out, right? And we know that our experiences are those highlights. And so it's almost like a light bulb, right? Those are kind of like just spots that shine. And neon was a good way to represent that. And from that, we sort of stumbled onto Candy. And what we realized was that Candy, that bright neon pink, is essentially a good representation of the fact that that's the spark, that's the light, which denotes the experiences that we showcase, that denotes the aha moments that we have that have made us sort of come to where we are. The combination of two just felt right. It was edgy, it was different, it was representative of who we are, and it was unabashedly itself. So I think the process kind of like organically led us to this destination. Of course, it was anything but that, but that's just life. Life kind of goes in different dimensions and waves. But the endpoint that we got to across these three things is something that we are extremely proud of. And we now feel that we have a brand that's a lot closer to who we are today than who we were yesterday. And that's exactly what this journey is all about.
To us, Purps represents the human potential for happiness, all of our dreams. And Candy is those moments of sparks when those dreams actually come true, when you're actually happy and elated. That's precisely what we sell. This process wasn't as simple as that sounds though. We had a lot of dead ends. In fact, if you think about it, only one brand concept comes out, if at all. Everything else is a dead end. But they teach you a little bit more about who you are and what you're trying to do. From these brand guidelines and brand colors, the first thing we developed was our color system. But we have paid special attention to usage and accessibility for each color. That's why each color comes with a specific rating. Will it work against that background? Will it be legible at this size? Will it work for text? Will it work for illustrations? In fact, when designers are using these colors in Figma, they can see little tips which help them make these decisions. This ensures that we comply with WCAG guidelines or Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. If you want to learn more about that, the link is in the description below. This entire process was designed and led by Niteesh Yadav, our then senior product designer. You should follow him on Twitter. Check out the link in description below. The next step was to choose a new typeface.
We wanted to stay away from the crowd.
The geometric sans crowd.
Exactly, right? The geometric sort of sans crowd that's very, very common these days that every brand is kind of referring to. And I don't blame them for it, but I just kind of felt like at some point it just became, or at some point it just become too much where your identity has kind of gotten lost. Everybody seems the same, feels the same, looks the same. And so we wanted to stay away from the crowd. At the same time, we wanted to ensure that the function of that font, which is about making sure that the consumer is able to really consume the essence of the experience, understand what it has to offer by reading the content that we've written for them, is not lost, right? So it was a delicate balancing act between substance and style. And the question in front of us was that, listen, how much do we index on both fronts and what's the right choice? We went down the rabbit hole. I can't imagine the number of fonts that we looked at, the number of comparisons that we did. We had screens and walls littered with printouts of different fonts and how they looked, and we looked at them on digital screens, we looked at them having taken a printout, we talked about how this will look like on a billboard, on a t-shirt, and so on and so forth. When we sort of stumbled upon Halyard, what was clear was that there is style. If you look at sort of the G's and the Y's, the way that they treat the lower half of that letter, and the way that you sort of see the edges and the way that they don't become too stuck up about the geometry of the edge, spoke to us. It said that, hey, listen, there is something here that kind of like says, listen, I'm not usual, I'm different, and it makes it evident. But at the same time, it's got everything that we need to be able to ensure that this is a extremely functional font that people from across the world can read, can understand, can comprehend. And that was also sort of equally important to us. So once we saw it, we kept checking it against all the options that we had. And every single time this was coming out to be the true winner. And so through that process, we sort of ended up with the answer that, hey, listen, this is the one to go with. So I think Halyard is kind of for us just the right balance of that substance and style.
If you want to learn more about how Niteesh designed the process of us selecting a typeface, you can check out the video over here or somewhere one of these places. Yeah, there. All of this was happening late 2019 to early 2020. And then the pandemic happened. The entire focus of the company shifted at survival. And today, not only have we come back to pre-COVID levels of business, but in parts of the world, we do even more business than we ever did before. That too with better margins. We used the entire period of lockdown to sort of refactor our business. And it was not just us. The entire industry moved forward. Many old systems got updated as crowd management and this digital world became more important. We felt this was the perfect time to bring back this project. Here we developed our UI library and various parts of the design system that power various products and features. For example, our navigation system, our product card system, and our bread and butter, the booking flow. The entire year of 2020 and 2021, the design team spent testing various parts of the system, making sure everything works as we transition from old to the new, making sure everything is an improvement, is more accessible than it was ever before. This isn't just a visual change. This helped us clarify who we actually are as a business, as a design team, and as a company. It impacts way more than just deciding which color to use. It impacts our decision making day to day. What do we prioritize when faced with questions for designers? Do not compromise on these three things: functionality, aesthetics, and accessibility. All three go hand in hand for us. That brings us to today, when finally this new brand is in the hands of our customers. If you like what we do at Headout as a design team, we are hiring. Do write to us at design@headout.com. Send us your portfolio and what role you are applying for. That's design@headout.com. Upcoming video or a live stream, we will cover different parts of our design system and our UI library. If you'd like to know something specific about the rebranding process or any of these things, let me know in the comments below. And you know what time it is? You know exactly what time it is. It's time to hit that like button and subscribe if you're not. And thank you for watching. Like when you buy that juice, a brand is the juice.
This is the face of a frustrated loan creator.
I have recorded this goddamn video 3 fucking times. 3 goddamn times.
Nice.
This goes in clips. Kings that clips. Should I open a clips channel? Should I open a clips channel? Video for watch. Worst timing ever. Dude. Epic. Dude, I hate it. I saw him coming and I'm like, shotgun in 3, 2, 1. Holy crap. Okay, we start again. Yeah.